The adventure continues as our group of heroes lands in Lumiose City. They have one day before Ash is supposed to take part in the battle festival. Due to the location the battles will take place, Ash has decided to call on the aid of a friend, so the group all go to Prism Tower. On their way there, Goh ends up finding a wild Froakie and tries to catch it. Ash remembers catching Greninja back when it was a Froakie, and smiles as Goh attempts to catch his own Bubble Frog. However, he does have some trouble until a young girl comes up and suggests what he could do to catch the Froakie. Ash, of course, recognizes this girl as Bonnie, and introduces her to Goh and Chloe. After Froakie is caught, the group head to Prism Tower, where they find Clement in the middle of a gym battle. He defeats his opponent quickly, and then reunites with Ash, getting introduced to Chloe and Goh. With this, Ash brings out the new members of his team that he has on hand, saying it's time for him to get ready for the upcoming battle festival. Clement meets the different Pokemon on Ash's team, specifically taking interest in Kleavor, as it is an evolution that he doesn't recognize. The group get to talking, discussing what Ash should do as far as training goes. That's when they bring up Lucario trying to learn a new move. After discussing it with Clement, he suggests that Lucario is probably trying to learn the move Blaze Kick. With this, he starts to make a device to read the fiery energy that Lucario would emit. Goh and even Chloe help out with making this device, as Goh has made things to read the energy of Mew when he was little, and Chloe has seen how her dad fixes the devices in the lab a few times, and has picked up a few things here and there. With old and new friends working together, the device is created. Now Lucario can begin to concentrate the fiery energy within in order to prepare the new move. They run a few tests, trying to get the fiery energy to form, and yet Lucario can't get it to stay. They check the device to see why, and it soon becomes apparent what's happening to the fiery energy. Lucario is putting too much into the attack, and due to not having fully mastered the move, Lucario is just overheating himself instead. Ash originally thinks that Darmanitan would be able to fix this, being an ice type, but Gengar is actually the one to swoop in for the assist. Being a ghost type, it uses its naturally chilling body to drop Lucario's body temperature. Ash thanks Gengar for this, and so they begin practice once again, trying to get the move mastered before Lucario can bring his body temperature back to normal. For practice, Ash has Tyranitar use Fire Blast, with Lucario kicking it back in order to counter. After a few attempts of this, finally Lucario is able to master Blaze Kick. With that, Gengar stops giving Lucario the chills. Gengar floats over, touching the flames of the newly mastered Blaze Kick. The warm feeling sends Gengar spiraling away, leaving everyone a little confused. Ash asks Gengar if it's alright, to which Gengar assures him, before beginning his own training. Ash smiles as Clement walks up, pointing out how Gengar seems to really want to impress Ash, especially now that Lucario has learned a new move. Ash looks to his other Pokemon, seeing the others getting to work as well. He nods, saying he'll have to bring in Dragonite, Thwackey, and Swampert from Cerise Lab too, as they wouldn't want to miss out on this. Not when everybody's already so fired up to become stronger. He also takes into account that he might want to use everything he has with this team, looking down at the Z Power Ring he wears. As Ash gets to training, the group hang out and help Ash train. They each get to know each other a little better, talking about what they've experienced on their travels. Time passes quickly, and before they know it, it's nighttime. The next day comes, and the group all head to the Kalos League Stadium. Many people from all over the world are gathered for this exciting battle festival, and the crowd only fuels Ash's drive to win, and get even closer to the Masters 8. Getting to the stadium, Ash sees multiple familiar faces. His only question is, who will he be facing in battle? That question is quickly answered in part, when a familiar face meets up with them. Coming up to the quintet is Richie, who has finally made it back to the Ultra class. Ash smiles, hoping the two can get to battle soon. However, the festival is about to get underway, so they'll quickly go to their places. Lumiose Stadium is packed full of trainers from all over the world, all cheering and ready to see who will win the battle festival. The 16 trainers are announced to them all, as they each step out onto the battlefield. Some notable names include Ash, Richie, Wulfric, Astrid, Ilima, Seabold, and Drasna. However, the star of the show, who everyone is wanting to see, is Diantha, who appears on the stage and is met with the most cheers of everyone. Ash is actually surprised by who he sees there, however, especially Ilma, who he hasn't seen since the Alola League. The beginning matches are decided, and Ash finds out who he's facing first. It turns out, he'll be getting a rematch with the strongest gym leader of Kalos himself, Wulfric. The two go onto the battlefield, and Wulfric comments how he can tell Ash has grown a lot as a trainer since the last time they saw each other. He'd actually heard Ash was now champion of Alola, but champion or not, he wasn't going to lose to Ash again. Ash shares this sentiment, readying himself for battle. The battle is revealed to be a single battle, and so, the two throw out their first Pokemon. Beginning strong, we have Ash's Galarian Darmanitan facing Wulfric's Avalugg. The two Pokemon clash fiercely, with Darmanitan showing its heavy-hitting Flare Blitz and Superpower attacks. However, Avalugg is versatile, and it's able to use Gyro Ball to counter many of the attacks, while also using moves like Stone Edge at the same time. However, this isn't anything Ash hasn't had to deal with before. However, he decides to save Galarian Darmanitan for later, swapping it out for Kleavor. With a quick Swords Dance setup, Kleavor is able to use its powerful Stone Axes to take down Avalugg. Much to Ash's surprise, Wulfric's next Pokemon is Cryogonal. Cryogonal is a bit trickier to deal with as it uses Confuse Ray on Kleavor, making it more difficult for Ash to get a hit in on it. However, Ash has already had to deal with the confusion brought by Dragonate's Outrage, so he's able to resolve this in good time. Still, Cryogonal proves to be difficult for Kleavor to take down, using Ice Beam in an attempt to freeze Kleavor's giant axe arms to the ground beneath it. Kleavor doesn't want it to go down without a fight, so breaking free, it rushes in for a close combat. It pushes against a point-blank Flash Cannon in order to knock out Cryogonal, before feigning as well. Wulfric is surprised by the tenacity of the bug type, as he wasn't expecting it to take down two of his Pokemon. However, his final member is by far his strongest. Wulfric sends out Abomasnow, and Ash decides that the best opponent for this would be his Darmanitan. The two powerful beasts come out, and a blizzard whips up around them. Darmanitan is still tired from the last battle, and yet Wulfric decides he's not going to give Ash the chance to fight back. Immediately, he Mega Evolves Abomasnow and goes for Blizzard. The icy attack beats down on Galarian Darmanitan, and yet Ash has no problems with it. Soon, Darmanitan enters its Zen mode, and Ash knows this is when they can truly shine. Darmanitan rushes in with an Ice Punch before following it up with Flare Blitz. Wulfric tells Ash to not get too ahead of himself, as Darmanitan's just taking more and more damage. Ash then admits that with his other Pokemon he's been trying to battle without letting them take unnecessary damage, as that was something he promised a friend he'd do. However, with Darmanitan, there was something different about that style that it didn't like. We cut back to when Ash was training his Pokemon. He's actually trying to teach new moves to Darmanitan so it doesn't get itself too badly hurt in battle. However, it's refusing, wanting to keep up the use of Belly Drum and Flare Blitz. Ash tells Darmanitan that he doesn't want to see it get too hurt. But there's something in Darmanitan's eye that gets Ash to understand. We cut back, and Ash announces that his Darmanitan. He found it was a Pokemon that wanted to fight at full power, no matter how hurt it got. It wanted to use that pain to grow stronger and break through its limits. So that's what they were going to do together. With that, Ash flashes his Z Power Ring, revealing the Fire Ring in Z. This shocks all around, apart from Ilima, who is happy to see the champion of Alola using the power he got from his time there. Wulfric, on the other hand, is curious to see what he means, but still won't let up, as he has Abomasnow beat Darmanitan back with an Ice Punch of its own, followed up with a Wood Hammer. Ash and Darmanitan then ready the Z move, as Wulfric commands Mega Abomasnow to go for a full power Blizzard. The powerful Inferno Overdrive is launched into this incoming attack, but despite Wulfric and Abomasnow's power, the Z move pulls through, decimating Mega Abomasnow and getting Ash the win. Ash runs onto the battlefield to congratulate Darmanitan. He tells the Ice type that he's sure Kleavor is proud of how strong he's become, which makes the Zen Charm Pokemon really happy. Then, Wulfric joins him on the battlefield. He first congratulates Ash, but then tells him that he needs to have a few words with him. Ash gets a little more serious, as he can tell whatever Wulfric needs to say is important. This is when Wulfric asks Ash if he knows anything about what happened to Pokemon Village. Ash shakes his head, and this is when he learns that the place once known as a safe haven for abandoned Pokemon had been burned to the ground, and all the Pokemon were gone, including the one that Wulfric knew secretly protected it. Ash knows Wulfric is talking about Mewtwo, and tells him that he and Goh fought Mewtwo a while back. When the battle was over, Mewtwo had teleported them away as it sensed something was wrong outside the cave. Wulfric figured Ash had nothing to do with it, but for the sake of the people living in Snowbell City, he had to ask, as some of them saw Ash heading into the forest. No one knows what happened other than there being a fire deep within the forest. But as Ash knows about Pokemon Village and knows about Mewtwo, Wulfric wanted Ash to know to be on the lookout for anything on where the Pokemon that lived there went. Ash nods, saying he'll be sure to tell Wulfric if he finds anything out. The next rounds come and go, with the Elite Four and Champion of Kalos making their way through to the next rounds. Not that anyone from Kalos was surprised. Ilima and Richie also made it to the next round, much to Ash's excitement. Not only that, but it's revealed Ash's next opponent will in fact be Ilima. Before the next round, Ash meets up with the others in order to strategize. Ilima is a strong trainer from Alola, who has both Z moves and Mega Evolution, just like Ash. So they try and come up with a counter for the potential use of either. Goh believes that Mega Kangaskhan is more likely to appear, as they're in the Kalos region and Mega Kangaskhan is a very powerful Pokemon. However, Clement isn't too sure. A powerful Z move like the one Ash just used could be dangerous. Luckily, they didn't have to worry about Ilima using both in battle, due to the rules of the World Championships. After more brainstorming, Ash decides what 3 Pokemon he'll bring to the battle, before stepping back onto the battlefield. Meeting Ilima there, the Alolan trainer admits he's been wanting to get the chance to face off against Alola's champion. Now, he finally has that chance, on the grand stage that is the World Championships. Ash smiles, saying he knows just how skilled Ilima is, as well as his popularity back in Alola, so he's really excited to see how this battle goes. The battle begins, with Ash sending out his Gengar to take on Ilma's Smeargle. Smeargle fights Gengar with some powerful moves like Hydro Pump, Fire Blast, and Power Whip, However, Gengar is able to easily dodge and counter these attacks with his own moves. Ash calls for Sludge Bomb at one point, however, Gengar tries to do something different from Sludge Bomb, completely ignoring the command. In the stands, Clement recognizes these moves as ones that Gengar was doing during training. But why was it doing them now? Ash decides to try something other than Sludge Bomb, as for whatever reason, Gengar just isn't using it. So he attempts to use Psychic and Dazzling Gleam, both of which Gengar performs perfectly. However, Ilma has a counter for this. He has Smeargle Sketch Psychic, and uses that move against Gengar. Gengar tries the movements it was doing before, and a bit of poisonous liquid forms for a moment. However, Psychic takes Gengar out. Ash sighs, calling Gengar back, as he begins to wonder what Gengar was trying to do. Ash decides to bring in Swampert next, deciding to see how well the Mudfish will do now with its fully evolved might. Ilma goes for Power Whip, however Swampert counters and deals back the damage with enough force to quickly take down Smeargle. Much to Ilma's surprise, Ash smiles as Swampert really isn't messing around like it used to. Eevee is the next Pokemon Ilma sends out, and immediately he goes for his signature Z move, Extreme Evo Boost. Ash tells Swampert to get ready, as Eevee will be far stronger now. But then Ilma's next move shocks Ash, as he calls for Baton Pass. With that, Eevee switches out to Kangaskhan. Ilma immediately has Kangaskhan go for Rock Slide, which hits with a lot of force and even flinches Swampert. The parent Pokemon then follows up with two powerful power-up punches, boosting Kangaskhan's stats. It's here Ilma tells us Ash that he won't be able to counter the strategy of dramatically boosting his stats. Ash tries to work out a counter for this, having Swampert use Liquidation to strike, and follow it up with Mudshot. Unfortunately, Kangaskhan's defenses are too high for Swampert to do any meaningful damage. Kangaskhan strikes with another power-up punch, only further increasing its attack power. Ash calls for counter, and the damage is far more thanks to just how strong Kangaskhan's last hit was. However, Swampert is still struggling to keep up. Then, with one final double edge, even with the attack being countered once again, Swampert is taken down. Ash calls Swampert back, telling it that it did a good job, and to leave the rest to Lucario. With that, Lucario is brought out. Ash tries to quickly strategize to defeat Ilma. To start, Ash Mega Evolves Lucario, calling for Double Team in order to evade a low kick. The speed and power of Kangaskhan is going to be tricky to get around, but a plan is starting to form. Ash calls for another Double Team as Kangaskhan tries to land a Double Edge. Immediately, all the clones fire a volley of Aura Spheres at Kangaskhan, before the clones launch Lucario for a Meteor Mash. Ilma says that Ash is leaving Lucario wide open, going for Power-Up Punch. But it's just another clone. From behind, Lucario strikes with Meteor Mash, before following it up with a critical Blaze Kick. Kangaskhan turns to strike Lucario, only for Lucario to double team once more and evade. In order to cover more ground, Ilma has Kangaskhan use Rock Slide, which manages to take down multiple clones and hit Lucario for some good damage. Ilma then has Kangaskhan rush in for Double Edge, which hits hard, leaving Lucario very badly damaged. However, Kangaskhan's recoil is taking its toll, so Ash has Lucario go in for one final hit. Striking with another Blaze Kick, Lucario finally manages to take Kangaskhan down. Now, Ilma is just down to Eevee. However, with Lucario tired and damaged, Eevee is able to get some good hits in with Swift. Ash tries to fight back, but Eevee is able to lower Lucario's attack using Baby Doll Eyes. It strikes hard using Last Resort, before following up with another Swift. Through this rushdown of attacks from Ilima, he only shows the power the small normal type can have. Lucario is able to get a few hits in with Meteor Mash and Blaze Kick, but Eevee is too energetic and quick for Lucario to do enough at first. However, with one last Aura Sphere, Ash is able to take Eevee down. Ash and Ilima go to shake hands, and Ilima congratulates him on a well-fought battle. However, Ash isn't really that happy. He states that winning because he ran and avoided Kangaskhan with Double Team doesn't feel like a proper win. Ilima just smiles, saying that they'll just have to battle again sometime so he can win in a way that he feels more proud of. Not that he'll let him, of course. With that, Ash moves on to the semifinals. Only 4 trainers remain at this point: Ash, Diantha, Richie, and Drasno. The matchups are decided, and Ash finds that it's finally time for him to have his final battle with Richie that he wanted. He starts to get excited for it. He hasn't had Richie as an opponent since his last time in the Indigo League, and now both of them were much stronger. He once again joins his friends and tries to come up with a plan for the battle. Knowing some of the Pokemon Richie has used before, the group tries to think about how Ash could pull off the win. Mega Charizard Y would be a very difficult challenge to get around. However, Ash figures that he should use Tyranitar to counter that. Flygon makes things tricky, as Tyranitar's Stealth Rock can easily be countered thanks to it knowing Defog. Chloe also suggests Ash not bring any of the Pokemon that he used against Ilima. Given how fierce that battle was, she believes that it's best that those Pokemon get the time to rest and recover before battling again. Ash agrees with this, although Goh points out that if Lucario and Swampert both can't go into the battle, then he'll have less options for Pokemon that don't take Sandstorm damage. It also means Ash wouldn't be able to use Mega Evolution. However, Ash isn't worried. He still has Z moves, and even if that doesn't work, he still has other options. Clement and Bonnie both agree that they shouldn't be worried about Ash winning. Even if he doesn't have everything at his disposal, he's always been able to find a way around challenge no matter how difficult. He also knows Richie well, so both of them are sure that he'll be able to get the win. With that, they think about which members of Ash's team are fighting fit, before it's time for him to get back on the battlefield. When he meets Richie again, the two stand happily on opposite sides of the battlefield. The two reminisce over the last time they were each other's opponents. Indigo League Conference. A grand stage just like this one. Richie jokes about how he hopes none of Ash's Pokemon go to sleep this time, and the two friends laugh. This is when it's revealed the battle will actually be a double battle, rather than the single battle style that Ash had been battling in previously. At first, Ash thinks that this might complicate things for him, but he's still not worried in the slightest. He's just ready to have an exciting battle with Richie. The battle begins, and Ash sends out Tyranitar and Thwackey, while Richie sends in his own Tyranitar, Cruz, alongside Dune the Flygon. Immediately, the duo go all out with Tyranitar using Ice Beam to freeze Dune, while Thwackey goes in for a Wood Hammer. Unfortunately for Thwackey, it's the only one at a disadvantage in the sandstorm weather, which Richie uses to his advantage, having Flygon break free of the ice and dodge before beating down Thwackey with Flamethrower. The grassy terrain from its ability only able to heal so much. Knowing Thwackey will only continue to struggle if Flygon keeps this up, Ash has Tyranitar intervene. With the pseudo-legendary backing up Thwackey, the two are able to do more against Dune and Cruz. Even with Cruz being far stronger after Richie's training on Mount Silver, the duo at Ash's side are able to do pretty well when working together. sticking close by in the sandstorm so Tyranitar can help Thwackey fight. This is when Richie pulls out a new strategy. He reveals he had decided to teach Cruz a move that Ash had taught his own Tyranitar, calling for Stealth Rock. Then, to force Ash's strategy to switch, he calls for Cruz to use Roar, swapping out Tyranitar and Thwackey for Dragonite and Pikachu. Now Ash is put on the back foot, as both of his Pokemon are getting damaged by his own Sandstorm. Dragonite and Pikachu put up a good fight, combining attacks like having Dragonite use Aqua Tail on Cruz, before Pikachu traps it in an Electro Web, to give it a powerful shock all over. However, the first Pokemon to go down in this fight is actually Pikachu, after a strong Earth power from Dune takes Ash's ace Pokemon out of the battle. Ash brings in his Tyranitar once again, just as the sandstorm subsides and grassy terrain fades away. Ash knows he has to come up with a way to get rid of the Stealth Rocks, but before he can do anything, Richie has Cruz roar again, switching Tyranitar in for Thwackey, before swapping out Cruz for Zippo. Richie decides to go all out from the beginning, Mega evolving Zippo into Mega Charizard Y. With that, Harsh Sunlight is formed, allowing for Zippo to fire a more powerful Fire Blast at Thwackey. The Grass Monkey Pokemon is just barely able to hang on after this devastating hit. Thankfully, the grassy terrain does heal Thwackey a bit, giving it enough strength to take down Flygon with a Grassy Glide. Just as Dune is going down, Richie commands Zippo to strike it with an Air Slash. Just when Thwackey thinks it might be taken out of the battle, Dragonite flies in, taking the hit for Thwackey. Richie makes a comment about how well Dragonite is able to take hits, before bringing in a Pokemon no one was expecting. Calling it by the name of Bond, Richie sends out the Galarian Pokemon Inteleon. Up in the stands, Goh is surprised to see Richie with an Inteleon, and decides to call out Sobble so we can see its fully evolved form in battle. Immediately, the strong Water-type Pokemon hits Dragonite with a powerful Ice Beam, before striking Thwackey with U-Turn, and swapping out for Cruz. Thwackey goes in for Acrobatics, but Zippo messes up Thwackey's movements by beating its massive wings in order to shift the airflow around it. Thwackey tries to get back up, but even with the grassy terrain, it has taken a lot of damage. Ash is about to call Thwackey back, when he gets an idea. He calls for Thwackey to throw its stick around the battlefield. Thwackey nods, tossing the stick like a boomerang. The crowd watches confused, until they see the stick breaking through the Stealth Rocks, destroying each one as it flies. Richie's a bit surprised by this, pointing it out as a typical Ash strategy. As Ash calls back Thwackey in order to let it get some rest after destroying the Stealth Rocks, Richie asks him why Thwackey only has one stick, as they normally have two. Ash notes that Clement had actually asked the same thing the other day, and then reveals that it gave its stick to some friends before joining his team. Richie smiles, saying Thwackey's friends must be really proud of it. Ash nods, before tossing out Tyranitar once more. With his pseudo-legendaries out on the field, and the drought being replaced with Sandstorm, the two continue their full-force fight. Their Pokemon clash over and over again, with Ash trying to make sure that Cruz doesn't get a chance to set up Stealth Rocks. If for any reason he would have to bring out Thwackey again while they're up, it could cost him the battle. Richie then makes an interesting move, swapping out Zippo for Bond. At first, Ash doesn't really understand this choice, but it soon becomes apparent when the Inteleon is able to fire off critical snipe shots at Tyranitar. It's at this point Ash, and even his friends up in the stands, realize that Inteleon is using its crest to sense where Ash's Pokemon are, similarly to how Ghost Sobble did at the Seafoam Islands. With Bond being able to tell where Ash's Pokemon are, and Cruz not being bothered by the sandstorm to begin with, Richie's Pokemon put Ash on the back foot. Dragonite and Tyranitar still both do their best, with Tyranitar taking control of the situation, allowing for Cruz to be taken down with a powerful Ice Beam. It's now 3 against 2, but with how badly damaged Thwackey already is, it might as well be a 2-on-2. The sandstorm goes away, being replaced due to Zippo's drought ability. Tyranitar narrows its eyes, seeing Richie's strongest Pokemon. Both trainers call for Fire Blast, and the two powerful attacks collide. Dragonite and Tyranitar both charge in, focusing more on Zippo. However, Bond supplying support does keep Ash's Pokemon at bay. Ash keeps trying to find a way around Richie's strategies. He's starting to get a little worried, which is something Dragonite picks up on. As the battle keeps going fiercely, Ash is trying to think about some way to gain the advantage again. Both Zippo and Bond were very problematic for the battle, as they were covering each other very well. With the drought up, both Dragonite's Aqua Tails and Bond's Snipe Shots were weaker, yet Zippo was able to hit Tyranitar hard with Solar Beam. That was going to be the trickiest thing to deal with. If only it was able to obscure Zippo's access to the sun, while also making it difficult for Bond to see. An idea comes to mind. He calls for Tyranitar to use Fire Blast, and then for Dragonite to hit it with Aqua Tail. This causes steam to form, covering the battlefield. It obscures the sun from Zippo, so Richie tells Zippo to fly up into the air and out of the steam. Before Ash can say a word, Dragonite flies up after the Mega Evolved Pokemon, surprising both Ash and Tyranitar. Ash knew that Dragonite had gotten more into battling, but this was on a whole other level. Richie calls for Bond to use Ice Beam and stop Dragonite, but Ash tells Tyranitar to Fire Blast upwards. Both attacks cut through the steam, canceling each other out, as Ash calls for Dragonite to use Dual Wing Beat. Dragonite strikes Zippo hard, cutting through the air slashes Richie had called for in order to keep Dragonite back. Zippo goes for Dragon Pulse, but Ash tells Dragonite to dodge it by spinning with Dragon Dance. Dragonite avoids the attack before flying in and slamming into Zippo with Aqua Tail. The two fly away from each other before Zippo fires off a few more air slashes. Dragonite counters them with Outrage. Meanwhile, on the battlefield below, within the mist, Inteleon is trying to combat Tyranitar. While Inteleon is able to tell where Tyranitar is, Ash decides to freeze the battlefield and have Tyranitar slide across in order to increase its speed. Even with Bond getting some good hits in, Tyranitar is able to slide and crash into Inteleon, at one point picking Bond up and throwing it into the ground with Crunch. Richie realizes Bond might need some backup and tells Zippo to prepare a Solar Beam. However, Ash counters by having Dragonite grab onto Zippo, making it difficult for the Mega Pokemon to fire off the attack. Then, knowing that he needs to take out Bond quickly, he pulls out his Firium Z once again. Unlike Galarian Darmanitan, Tyranitar hasn't used it in battle before, but Ash was sure to take the time to teach Tyranitar what it needed to know before the Battle Festival. So with that, the two get ready for an Inferno Overdrive. The Z move is fired, but Zippo is about to break free. Ash notices and tries to think of a plan before remembering a technique that an old Pokemon of his could use. So, Ash yells out to Dragonite, calling for her to spin dive into the Inferno Overdrive. For the brief moment, Dragonite manages to overpower Zippo, grabbing on tight and sending them both down towards the Z move that Tyranitar set at Bond. Richie tells Zippo to fire a Dragon Pulse, which strikes point blank. However, Dragonite is just barely able to hang in there. Zippo keeps trying to free itself, charging up for another Fire Blast, while attempting to get out of Dragonite's grip. Suddenly, within the heat of the battle, Dragonite's eyes glow. Then, starting from the tail, water begins to form. At first it seems it's just using Aqua Tail, but then the water envelops the two Pokemon, becoming a pillar of water the two spin through as they hurtle down into the flames of the Inferno Overdrive. As the Z-move strikes Bond, Dragonite and Zippo plunge into the attack. The water mixes with the fire and it explodes into a mix of steam and smoke. When it clears away, Tyranitar is the only one standing. With Thwackey in the back as well, that means a 2-0 victory for Ash, as he's able to move on to the final round. Ash runs up, hugging both Dragonite and Tyranitar. The two both did a great job, with Tyranitar having managed to pull off the Inferno Overdrive, and Dragonite being able to take Zippo down into whatever that new attack was. This is when Richie comes up, congratulating Ash on the battle. To think, the two of them had come this far since the Indigo League. Now, Ash was going to make it even farther. Ash thanks Richie, saying he's glad they got to battle and hopes they can do it again sometime. Richie nods, saying he'll watch Ash in the finals, and then he'll be back to training so he can one day beat him. Until then, he tells Ash to make it as far as he can, and beat Leon for him. Ash nods, saying he'll do just that. The two leave the battlefield, but both meet up with the rest of the group. Richie decides he'll watch the next battle with them, as he figures watching it with friends would be the most fun option. Speaking of which, Ash's final opponent is revealed. After beating Elite Four member Drasna, Diantha was the one to make it through. This gets Ash excited, as he's been wanting to battle Diantha again. He hasn't gotten to since she battled him in Greninja during his Kalos adventures. Speaking of Greninja, Goh asks if they should go see Greninja again, but Ash shakes his head, saying that it doesn't feel like it's time yet. Chloe asks what that means, and this is where she learns of the bond Ash and Greninja have. Ash says that he'll go get Greninja when the time is right. It's a shame Greninja won't be able to fight Diantha, but he'll just have to win for him. Clement then points out they wouldn't have enough time to find Greninja and come back anyway. They only have a little time before the next match, and Ash needs to figure out what he's going to do. Of course, with that last battle, Ash figures he shouldn't use the same four again. Dragonite, Thwackey, and Tyranitar were all pretty badly damaged, and need the time to rest. The others agree, with Clement revealing Dragonite used the last of its energy to learn Waterfall. It seems Ash's Dragonite truly is the sea incarnate the Pokedex described. Ash checks on his other Pokemon, and sees if the others are ready to battle. Thinking about what he might have to face, Ash selects Lucario, wanting to prepare for Diantha's Gardevoir. However, immediately after that choice, Gengar actually steps up, wanting to fight as well. Swampert steps up as well, rounding off a group of 3, but Ash needs one more in case it's a double battle. At first, Darmanitan steps up, wanting to battle and show its strength again, and not give Lucario all the fun. Knowing Kleavor might also want to battle, Ash makes sure it's okay with Kleavor first, to which the bug Pokemon nods. Wanting to battle, but content with the 2 wins it got against Wolfric. So with that, the team of 4 is decided. Before the battle though, Ash and the others decide to get in a little more training, as Ash wants to make sure these 4 are ready for anything. Once the time for the battle begins, Ash meets Diantha on the battlefield. The Kalos champion smiles, glad to see that Ash made it this far. She had heard a lot about his journey, because of overhearing talks from Leon back when she was in the Masters 8. Unfortunately for her, A trainer Ash is too familiar with was the one to knock her out of her spot. Despite the fact she is still reigning Kalos champion, the previous Kalos League winner was the one who took it from her. This only gets Ash more excited to make his way to the Masters 8. Since Alon had already made it, he was sure Rento wouldn't be too far behind. He couldn't lose here. So once the battle is revealed to be a double battle, the two send out their Pokemon. Ash starts off with Darmanitan and Swampert, while Diantha picks Aurorus and Gourgeist. Now, before we get into the full battle, I do want to mention some others in the stands. The Team Rocket trio. Yep, they have been watching the battle, taking up the radio host personas, while also trying to see which Pokemon they might be able to steal for the boss. However, they've been allowing themselves to get too distracted by the battles, and with Diantha sending out Gourgeist, stealing Pokemon is the last thing on Jessie's mind. Diantha starts off by building her defenses. As Gourgeist uses Trick or Treat on Darmanitan, Aurora sets up Reflect. When Darmanitan goes in for an Ice Punch, the Reflect takes the brunt force of the hit, resulting in Gourgeist only taking a little damage before disappearing with Phantom Force. Swampert goes for Mud Shot against Aurorus, but the fossil Pokemon is able to set up Light Screen just before the attack hits. With both screens set up against him, Diantha then counters with Blizzard, hitting both opponents just as Gourgeist comes in, hitting Darmanitan with an even harder hitting Phantom Force. Gourgeist and Aurorus keep up the pressure with Shadow Sneaks and Blizzards. While Ash is able to get in some good hits, the Reflect and Light Screen make his attacks barely do a thing to Diantha's Pokemon. Even when using Mirror Coat with Swampert, the attack doesn't do nearly as much. Ash decides he has no choice but to break out his trump card with Darmanitan, going for Belly Drum to maximize its attack power. He goes for an Ice Punch, but Gourgeist avoids due to Phantom Force. However, Ash figures out a counter to this, having Darmanitan Ice Punch the ground around it. When the Phantom Force portal opens, Gourgeist is met with the Icy Barrier, which shatters upon it, hitting it with multiple frozen shards. Then, with the final Flare Blitz, Darmanitan takes down Gourgeist. Diantha commends Ash and his interesting strategy to counter Gourgeist. However, her next Pokemon is one she believes will be able to defeat Ash's Pokemon. With that, she sends in Tyrantrum, the second fossil Pokemon of Kalos. Immediately, she calls for Head Smash, which goes straight towards Darmanitan. Ash calls for Swampert to get in the way, having the Mudfish counter the powerful attack. This knocks the massive Pokemon back. However, it gives Aurorus enough time for a Rock Slide, which hits both of Ash's Pokemon hard, even with Darmanitan's superpower breaking a few before hitting them. At first, both of Ash's Pokemon get out of the rocks that trap them. Ash smiles, but then watches as his Galarian Darmanitan falls to the ground. All that damage was too much in the end. Ash smiles, calling Darmanitan back, before bringing out Lucario. With the duo of Lucario and Swampert now on the field, the dual screens protecting Diantha's Pokemon fade, and this is what Ash was waiting for. Immediately, he has Lucario fire off an Aura Sphere. Diantha calls for Light Screen, but Ash has already planned ahead. He calls for Swampert to throw Lucario at Aurorus. The Aura Pokemon striking with a Meteor Mash just as the Light Screen is about to go up. Lucario hits hard with Meteor Mash and then immediately brings up its foot for a Blaze Kick, before Swampert strikes with a Liquidation. 3 powerful hits knock Aurorus to the ground. However, before either Pokemon can completely knock it out, Tyrantrum knocks Lucario away with a Dragon Tail, sending it back into its Pokeball and replacing him with Gengar. Tyrantrum then uses Earthquake, badly damaging everything around it. Ash calls for Gengar to use Sludge Bomb, But Gengar tries a movement like it did against Illimon, only for nothing to work. Ash is still unsure what Gengar's doing, but then he thinks it might be best for Gengar to keep trying it. He then calls to Swampert, telling it to get in front of Gengar and defend against these next hits. As Gengar keeps trying the movements it's been going for, Swampert counters and mirror coats all incoming attacks, making sure Gengar is protected from the attacks to the best of its ability. This gives Diantha the chance to get Reflect and Light Screen back up, but Ash isn't too worried. When Swampert falls is when Gengar finally pulls off what it was trying, striking both Tyrantrum and Aurorus with a powerful Sludge Wave, knocking out both due to the amount of damage the duo fossils had taken. Impressed by this, Diantha calls back both of her Pokemon, before bringing in Gardevoir. Ash then calls back Swampert, thanking it for protecting Gengar and telling it to get some rest. He'll leave the rest to Lucario and Gengar. However, the worst is yet to come. As the dual screens keep Gardevoir protected, Diantha then Mega Evolves Gardevoir, and fires a Shadow Ball at both opponents. Gengar brings up a Sludge Wave to protect them, but both Shadow Balls break through and land against both of Ash's Pokemon. Ash decides now is the best time, and Mega Evolves Lucario. Ash then calls for a combo of Aura Sphere and Shadow Ball. However, Gardevoir's Psychic catches both attacks, combining them and throwing them back at Lucario. Lucario and Gengar continue, but Diantha's Gardevoir is no joke, having other moves, like the now Fairy-type Hyper Voice and Mystical Fire in order to hit both hard. Ash needs to come up with something. He does have one trick up his sleeve, from back when he and Lucario trained with Greninja. He only hopes it can work. He calls for Lucario to put everything into one final attack. Lucario nods, raising up its arms, and getting ready to use a powerful Aura Sphere. This isn't something Diantha will simply allow, and so she calls for Gardevoir to use Psychic in order to stop it. Gardevoir gets ready, but as she's about to attack, Gengar leaps in with a Psychic of its own, canceling out Gardevoir's. Gardevoir then fires off Mystical Fire, but Gengar once again takes the hit, strangely glowing with a fiery energy as Mystical Fire is destroyed. Ash then calls for Sludge Wave, and Gengar creates a massive wave of toxic sludge. Diantha's Gardevoir attempts to push back against it, but by then it's already too late. Lucario's massive attack is ready, and so Ash calls for Lucario to do it, and use G-Max Aura Sphere. This name gets the attention of all around. Even Diantha is just surprised by this, as the attack comes crashing down on Gardevoir, causing it to give in to the Sludge Wave, which also comes in. When everything settles, Gardevoir is in the ground, reverting from its Mega Evolved state. Lucario and Gengar had done it. Both Pokemon collapse as well, but they're still crowned the winners of this final Battle Festival match. Ash is at a loss of words. He actually beat Diantha. Quickly, he runs up to Lucario and Gengar, congratulating the duo with open arms. Diantha also has to congratulate Ash's Pokemon, as they gave her and Gardevoir a good fight. The results come in for Ash's new ranking. He is now ranked 9th in the world, meaning he's now allowed to battle for the chance to become a member of the Masters 8. It's announced that the battle will be scheduled relatively soon, and everyone should look forward to seeing whether Ash will make it or not. Diantha tells Ash she hopes he does. Even though she is disappointed, she won't take back her own place among the others. With that, the Battle Festival comes to a close. Ash and friends say their goodbyes, as Clement and Bonnie need to get back to Lumio's gym, and Richie is planning on heading out for training. They ask Ash what he's going to do now, to which he simply tells Lucario that it's time. Ash, Goh, and Chloe head into the forest. Ash mentions that the amount of aura Lucario put out was sure to be enough for Greninja to feel as well, so he's certain that Greninja will know they're coming. Sure enough, Greninja appears, with the two Zygarde cores alongside him. Ash asks Greninja's friends if it's finally done helping. The second core nods, before the first says that Greninja wants to test Lucario one more time before joining Ash again. Ash agrees, and so the two Pokemon spar. Lucario and Greninja battle it out, with Lucario on much more even footing compared to the last time. However, Greninja still has the clear advantage. Lucario Mega Evolves, and Greninja becomes Ash Greninja as the battle gets more and more heated. The two clash constantly, going throughout the forest faster than the naked eye can see. The two finally return, clashing Aura Sphere against Water Shuriken, both attacks hitting each other right before Ash's eyes. The two then call the battle there. Greninja having seen plenty for itself. The two revert back to normal, and the second Zygarde core congratulates them both, as their battle, while fierce, also didn't get out of hand. With that, Greninja is back under Ash's ownership. The two warmly embracing, as they are reunited, and not leaving each other's side. Little might they realize at this moment, they're all being watched by Team Rocket. The Rocket Trio had followed them after Ash had won the Battle Festival, and now faced with what could possibly be their greatest chance to capture very powerful Pokemon, they didn't do anything. Jessie argues they should do this, as it's their mission from the boss. Even though they've considered the possibility that there's more to life than what they'll get from Team Rocket, they're still working for the boss, and so they don't have much of a choice. But James stops her by simply asking, what would Thwacky think? If they took the twerp's Pokemon, how would Thwacky feel? Ash's Pokemon are Thwacky's friends too. They're the ones who wanted Thwacky to be with him. The group thinks for a moment, pulling out the stick that Thwacky gave them, and decide not to ruin the happy reunion. They'll worry about what Giovanni will do to them for not completing their mission later. With that, Ash and his friends begin to head out, saying goodbye to the Order Pokemon, as they head to their next destination. Returning to Mega Island, Ash visits Swampert's family, showing them just how strong and mature Swampert has become since the last time they saw each other. Swampert's mother couldn't be more proud, even offering Ash the family's greatest treasure. At first, the group isn't sure what it is, but on closer inspection, it's a piece of Swampertite. This would mean Ash's Swampert would be able to Mega Evolve, just like Lucario. However, when offered it, Swampert decides not to, at least for the time being. While very appreciative of its family's treasure being bestowed to it, Swampert decides it doesn't want to Mega Evolve. Through its travels, it's realized it doesn't need to be like Lucario or Greninja in order to be strong, so it doesn't need to Mega Evolve like Lucario either. If it decides to Mega Evolve later on, then it will. So Ash stores away the Swampertite in his backpack for safekeeping, so it may wait for the day that Swampert might ever decide to Mega Evolve. As they're about to leave, the mother Swampert pulls her baby aside, deciding to give it one last gift. Through the coaching of its mother, it ends up gaining a new move instead, this being the powerful ground-type attack, Earthquake. With that, the group says goodbye, and heads back to Kanto. They stop by Cerise lab, spending some time there before Ash decides that he wants to do something else next. In order to train for battling, he decides to go to Professor Oak's lab, having his Pokemon from his adventures all train there together. Ash tells Goh and Chloe this idea, and both decide to come along as well. Once back in Pallet Town, Ash meets up with Tracy and Professor Oak, who welcome Ash and company. Tracy says that they're still waiting on the Pokemon Ash had at Cerise lab to be transferred over, so he'll wait until they get here. So, Professor Oak leads the group to the back, where Ash's old Pokemon are. As soon as the doors open, they're met with Infernape and Charizard already battling it out. Charizard seismic tosses Infernape into the ground right in front of them, before they realize Ash is there. As soon as the two welcome their trainer, the rest of Ash's Pokemon race up, all joining in on the greetings. Ash then sends out the 5 Pokemon he has on hand, and old meets new, as they take the time to all do their own thing. When the rest of Ash's Pokemon get here, we get some nice moments with all of Ash's different Pokemon. A warm reunion with the Kalos team, as Greninja has returned. Tyranitar reuniting with all of Ash's Kanto and Johto Pokemon. Ash's new Pokemon training or hanging out with his old ones. Some even spend time with Goh and Chloe and their Pokemon. The list of events can go on and on. However, the most interesting thing is when Gengar meets the fire types. Gengar takes a strange interest in their fiery battle spirit, even going in to touch their flames when they all show off their strongest fire moves together. The heat goes through Gengar's entire body, sending him flying off into the distance. The group, confused by this, go off to find Gengar. When they get to him, he's standing face to face with someone Ash remembers all too well. His Sinnoh League rival, Paul. This goes pretty similarly to the original, with Ash and Infernape and Paul reuniting. Goh and Chloe learning that Infernape was originally Paul's Pokemon, Electivire going off with all the other Pokemon per Paul's request, and the group just getting to see what Paul has been up to. We find out that he's not really one for festivals, so he decided not to participate in World Championships. But I'm also going to throw in that he did beat Brandon eventually. However, he didn't get offered the title of Frontier Brandon, as he didn't actually take on the entire battle frontier. When Ash challenges Paul to a battle, like in the original, he accepts. However, this time he says the battle will be a full 6-on-6, with no in-battle substitutions. He also tells Ash to bring together Pokemon from throughout his adventures. Ash accepts the terms, and goes out to get a team together. Once he gets to where they're training, Gengar has already learned Will-O-Wisp, and almost hits Ash with them if not for Infernape getting in the way of the new move. With that, Ash puts together the rest of his team, and all of Ash's Pokemon come together for the battle between rivals. At the beginning of the battle, Paul brings out Gyarados, to which Ash sends out Palpitoad, much to everyone's surprise. Goh and Chloe were expecting Pikachu, or even someone like Greninja, but Ash says that he wanted to battle with Palpitoad, especially after seeing him with Swampert. The battle begins, and Ash's Palpitoad immediately shows what it's capable of, confusing it with Supersonic, before firing off Hydro Pumps and Sludge Waves to rack up damage against Gyarados. However, Paul is still no pushover. Gyarados breaking free of confusion before Dragon Dancing, and then rushing Palpitoad with Ice Fang. Gyarados rapidly mauls Palpitoad in a way that reminds Ash and Goh of when Leon was fighting Lance and his Gyarados. There's a clash between Hydro Pump and Hyper Beam, which Gyarados wins. After recovering from the Hyper Beam, Gyarados goes in, slamming into Palpitoad with Aqua Tail. Palpitoad is sent flying into the air, as Gyarados sets up another Dragon Dance. Ash calls for another Supersonic, but Gyarados avoids it as Palpitoad lands and it rushes to the Toad with another Ice Fang. Suddenly, just before Gyarados can strike, Palpitoad begins to glow. It changes shape and then evolves into Seismitoad. The Vibration Pokemon grabs hold of Gyarados' fangs before blasting it with a far more powerful Hydro Pump. With that, Gyarados is taken down, and Seismitoad is claimed the winner. Ash is very happy by this outcome, congratulating Seismitoad. Seismitoad just beats its knuckles together before giving it a look to Ash's Swampert. Ash then calls back Seismitoad before the next battle begins. For the next battle, it's Dragonite versus Garchomp. The outcome is unfortunately similar to the original. While Dragonite will put up a great fight against Garchomp, she will unfortunately lose against Paul's Dragon. However, afterwards, Charizard comes up to Dragonite, reprimanding her, while also giving her pointers on what to do. Go and Chloe are both caught off guard by this, but Ash chuckles, mentioning how that spinning waterfall move Dragonite first did against Richie was inspired by Charizard's Seismic Toss. The next battle begins, and it's Torterra versus Sceptile. Torterra actually puts up a really good fight, being far stronger than Ash remembered. Stone Edge, Frenzy Plant, Wood Hammer, and Bulldoze are all used against Ash's Sceptile. Paul tries to show his true strength of his first Pokemon. However, Sceptile pushes itself to the brink and masters acrobatics in order to push back. Both grass types put in everything they have, and the result is a double knockout. The next battle begins, a classic rematch between Infernape and Electivire. The two rivals battle fiercely, both having grown a lot since the last time they battled. The two clash with Brick Break and Mach Punch, Flare Blitz and Wild Charge, Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. The two are evenly matched. Even when Blaze activates, Electivire is still able to push forward and combat the Fire Monkey. In the end of this battle, a clash between Flare Blitz and Wild Charge results in them once again taking each other out. Ash commends Paul for how he's raised Electivire, and Paul actually does the same thing to Ash for his Infernape. The next battle begins, and Ash decides to send in Kleavor. This is a Pokemon that Paul admits he heard quite a bit about. The evolution of Scyther had been lost to time. He pulls out a Pokeball, saying this one will be the proper opponent for Kleavor. With that, he commands, Ursaluna, stand by for battle. A Pokemon none of them have ever seen before appears. Professor Oak mentions he had heard of an evolution to Ursaring, but he wasn't sure it actually existed. Paul tells them that on his journey, he stumbled upon something called a peat block. His Ursaring liked it, and so Paul let it keep it. Then one night, under the full moon, Ursaring evolved into Ursaluna. This is Ursaluna's first proper battle, and so they won't hold back. Sure enough, Ursaluna proves to be a powerful opponent. Bulk Up helps attack and defense. Slash and Hammer Arm are able to hold up against X-Scissor and Stone Axe. Then, Paul reveals Ursaluna's signature move, Headlong Rush. A powerful move where Ursaluna charges in to take down Kleavor. The two Pokemon battle fiercely, Kleavor putting everything it has into this one fight. With one final Stone Axe, Kleavor manages to take down Ursaluna. However, Paul's Pokemon did a lot of damage. Lucario, Darmanitan, and Swampert proudly cheer on Kleavor. Kleavor looks over to the three it helped train, and smiles. The final battle comes. Gengar versus Metagross. This, I will keep the same. Metagross puts up a very good fight against Gengar, messing it up with Meteor Mash, Agility, and Psychic. But with the help of its new Will-O-Wisp, using the power it gained from Ash's Fire types, Gengar is able to deliver the final Shadow Ball and win the battle for Ash. With that, the battle is over. We cut to the Rocket Trio, who have received another call from Giovanni. He asks for a status report, and the trio explain that they weren't able to steal any Pokemon due to the presence of Diantha. Unfortunately, they just weren't strong enough to handle the mission with her around. Giovanni thinks for a moment, making them question what he was going to do to them. But Giovanni lets them off the hook, only because, soon, a much bigger plan will be enacted. He tells them that the World Championships is coming up, and it'll be the perfect time for Team Rocket to strike. They will be undercover, observing the matches alongside other grunts from Team Rocket. With everyone focused on this event, including a particular man they had associated with, Team Rocket would be able to rise to the top. For something this big, grunts and executives alike would be involved. Meowth then speaks up, asking what Giovanni would be doing. Giovanni doesn't tell them anything, choosing to end the call now, since they know their mission. He then turns, seeing two stones right next to the Master Ball holding Mewtwo. And that's where we'll be leaving things for right now. So what do you guys think? Are you ready for Ash to face Raihan and potentially make it to the Masters 8? How do you feel about the character and Pokemon returns this episode has? What do you think this journey has in store for our trio of trainers? And what do you think Giovanni is planning? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!